I don't really know. I don't either, actually. I can't hear. I can't hear anything.
You can't hear anything?
I just heard you now, yeah. I just heard you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Ken Moore. I'll be joined by my buddy Nelson Armstrong in just a moment to discuss the breaking news, the trade tonight. The Rockets send Russell Westbrook to the Washington Wizards for John Wall and a future first-round pick. Did the Rockets get enough? Did the Wizards get enough? Does Raphael Stone know what he's doing? We'll be back in 30 seconds to let you know. Hi, everyone. We're back with you, and Ken Moore and Nelson Armstrong here to discuss the trade tonight. Russell Westbrook headed to the Washington Wizards for John Wall and a protected first-round pick. And wow, I was shocked to hear this news here tonight. Did not know that that was going to happen. We heard reports that it may happen earlier in the week. I did not think that it was a distinct possibility considering the injury history of John Wall. I thought that if the Rockets would get John Wall in this deal, that it would come with a lot more draft picks than one protected first round pick. We're going to bring my boy in, Nelson, now to see if he is ready to go. And Nelson, your thoughts on the trade here tonight?
Hey, good evening. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How's it going, man?
I don't know if this is a blockbuster, right? I mean, it's a shocking trade, but is it a blockbuster?
Yeah, I think it is a blockbuster. I mean, you're talking about two perennial all-star players. Now, John Wall hasn't played in 2 years. So we don't know what he has in store, what he has left in the tank. I mean, personally, I'd never been a big Russell Westbrook fan until he got to Houston. I learned to appreciate his hard work and his effort a lot more than I previously did when he was in OKC. But to see him traded for a guy that hasn't been able to play basketball in 2 years, it's somewhat disappointing as a Rockets fan. And I know you're a San Antonio Spurs fan. So, you know, from a Spurs perspective and from a broader NBA perspective, your thoughts?
I For me, the biggest thing is that you're right. You traded for a guy who has not playing at all is a whole different thing. When you add that to the other acquisition with Boogie Cousins, my immediate concern for the Rockets is the ability to field a competitive team. Boogie's not going to be able to play very well initially. I have no idea when John Wall is supposed to be coming back. So you've basically taken the team that you had last year and you've reduced an all-star player with what? Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Complete.
Oh no, but that's my question. That's my question back to you. Yeah, it is more rhetorical, but I think in the near term, the Rockets are a much lesser team. Now, if John Wall can come back at 80% of what he was plus, I think there is some value there. I think he's probably a different style of Westbrook, but more controlled. And I think that could be beneficial to the team. But until he comes back, you're going to have Gordon and Harden in your backcourt. You have House as your small forward. You'll, I guess, have Woodker as whatever spot he's going to play. That's not a championship threatening type team. If you had brought Westbrook back, would it have been any different? And I think for me, ultimately, you just traded chairs on the deck. I mean, because the contracts are virtually the same, Wall versus Westbrook, except Wall isn't able to play right now. So I think the trade is really that's what I said. Is it a blockbuster?
Well, the question isn't
because it's kind of a myth to me relative to the Rockets not being able to move forward, lateral move.
Okay. You're freezing a little bit, so I'm not sure if your internet connection is going out a little bit where you are in your home. But looking at the trade from a money perspective,
I'm very sorry about that. It looks like it's strong, but I could try to go out and back in if you want.
Okay, no problem. Looking at the trade where it is right now, the Rockets with John Wall and with Russell Westbrook, the numbers are exactly even. 3 years, $132 million left for both guys on their contract. The only thing the Rockets get out of this is a protected first-round pick. My thought is you have to get at least 3 first-round picks unprotected to make this deal worthwhile, because the Wizards are getting an all-star player in Russell Westbrook. No matter what you think about him, they're getting an all-star player. The Rockets are getting a guy we don't even know if he can play. Why not wait at least a month into the season, watch 10 to 15 games, or at least through the preseason, to see if John Wall can even play basketball before you make this deal, because the final year of both of these deals is $47 million. There's no way John Wall opts out of $47 million. No way that happens. So I think the Rockets, from a salary cap perspective, they're going to be screwed for the next 3 years with a guy that may or may not can play. Your thoughts? You back?
Can you still hear me? Because I tried to go out and come back.
Yeah. Yes. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Okay, great. I can't say anything, but that's fine. No, you're exactly right. There's no way that unless he has lost his mind, there's no way any player is going to opt out. That's like Nick Batum, who just got signed by the Clippers. There's no way he was going to opt out of that last year of that deal with the Charlotte Hornets. And that was just too much money. He wasn't a good player. I'm not saying that Wall will be that type of non-good player, but I don't think he's going to be worth $47 million either. And so you're exactly right. The Rockets have taken on the same contract for the same amount of years, but for today, a lesser player because he hasn't played and was basically, in my mind, 2 second-round draft picks 4 or 5 years down the road. I don't know that that helps move. Again, my son said this was kind of a lateral move at best. In my opinion, it could be a degradation of the team's capabilities moving forward. But at best, yeah, I think it's a lateral move. I don't know that John Wall is significantly a better player than what we saw Russell Westbrook do last year. Let's not forget, he wasn't also just because of his name. He actually put up productive numbers in spite of his horrific three-point or distance shooting, but he still put up very big numbers with the Rockets in that lineup. So, yeah, you lose a big guy, a big production guy, and you bring in a guy again. Don't be repetitive, but you bring a guy in today who isn't on the court, at least as far as we know. We haven't seen him on the court. So, what can you do? We don't know. What you sent out, we know what he can do.
Right. I don't know if you can see the screen or not. Our boy Jerry asked, can John Wall be good again? He can be good, but is his goodness enough to make the Rockets, as you mentioned, a competitive playoff team, a contender in the Western Conference with Denver, with Utah, with the Lakers and the Clippers? Or was this trade precipitated by by Westbrook and Harden wanting to get out of town? They just got the best deal that they could.
Well, in part it's the best deal it could, but because of Westbrook's salary, right? There's only so many different people you could trade for. That's the other thing. Let me back up and say this. It's important to say that maybe the Rock.
Man, we're losing you there. We're losing you there. I'm gonna go to Fulton's question. Fulton had a question. Can Harden stay and the team work with Wall with the ball the majority of the time? In my opinion, I think Harden is gone. I think Robert Covington was traded a couple of weeks ago for a future first round pick that it turned out to be. Now you get Westbrook traded for John Wall and another future first round protected pick. And at this point, I would be surprised to see James Harden still on the team when the season begins on December 22nd. The NBA Christmas schedule just came out today. And for the first time in at least 5 years, if not more, the Rockets were not on the Christmas Day schedule. And I think the NBA knows that Harden and Westbrook would likely not be on the team. So therefore, there's no reason to put the Rockets on Christmas Day if they don't have any star power, any star attractions. So the Rockets, for the first time in forever, are not a Christmas Day team. They won't be featured on Christmas Day. And I doubt they'll be featured in many regular season games on TNT or ESPN. They'll probably get one or two just because they do have a history and they do have a good following. But unfortunately for Rockets Nation and Rockets fans, I think that the glory days, if you will, are gone. The days of competing for Western Conference championships and battling for number 1 and number 2 seeds are gone. And I think for the next couple of years, either with or without Harden, because if Harden's here, he's going to be a one-man show. And if he's gone, it depends on what you can get for him. Can you get that package from Brooklyn that includes Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen? Can you get that package from Brooklyn at this point? I don't know. I think we have Nelson back in. I think we have a little bit better connection this time. I was just talking about I think Harden's going to be gone. I think this trade is the preliminary move. We got rid of Covington. Now you've gotten rid of Westbrook. I think Harden is the next piece to go. For the first time, the Rockets are not on the Christmas Day schedule. And I think the NBA knows that neither of those guys will likely be on the team on Christmas Day.
Wow, that's a strong statement to say that they won't be there. Obviously, one won't be. He just got traded. I agree with you. The glory days are gone, I think, for the Rockets. I mean, the window is closed. And the question is, as I was coming back in, with that deal from Brooklyn, that would be a good start. I think the Rockets are at a place now where they have to start thinking about 3 years from now and where they want to be positioned. Look, the Lakers are still going to be very strong this year and maybe next year. And so do you have the team that can really compete and make things happen this year? I don't think so. Next year, I don't think so. So I think it's not so much can you, it's much rather what can you possibly get for Harden to really get yourself positioned to start over, but not start over at the bottom. Start over with a strong foundation and then get a piece here or there and then get right back into contention. That's really, I think, where the Rockets are. Without saying it, I think that's where they are. Now, how does, going back to the premise of this conversation, how does John Wall fit into that? And that's where I'm not sure I get where this trade helps the Rockets 3 years from now, two years from now.
Yeah.
Because, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'm not sure how he fits into that equation either, unless he can show enough that a team would be willing to take him on, perhaps in the final year of his deal in 2 years, like the Rockets were willing to take on Chris Paul. If he shows that he's got his step back, got his burst back, maybe he can become another trade chip down the line. But look, going into last season, all throughout last season, I think it was without question that John Wall had the most untradeable contract
Oh, boy.
In the
You're
NBA.
right.
And
Yeah.
for the Washington Wizards to be able to pull this off, I think for one, if Daryl Morey's here, does this trade happen? I think not. I think Raphael Stone, the new general manager, I think he probably got taken advantage of in this deal. I thought he made a decent deal in his first trade with Robert Covington, getting a number 1 pick for him. But to not get more than a protected first-round pick, I mean, why is this pick protected? This should be an unprotected pick. And this is, I think, is what's really going to aggravate Rockets Nation once they digest this, is that this can't be an unprotected pick. It is an unprotected pick. It is what it is. But, man, I think the Rockets got fleeced. And I think just the organization from the top down, I think we're in for a 3 to 5 year run of uncompetitive basketball unless they can get a hell of a deal for James Harden.
Yeah, I mean, can Harden by himself keep you competitive? Yes, he can keep you competitive, at least in games. Can he do anything significant by himself? No. I mean, there really isn't that guy anymore who can do everything by himself and will a team into contention. I see there's another question that came up, or another comment, I guess I should say. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, Gary had another question. Harden for Joel Embiid. Will Tillman Fertitta even deal with Daryl Morey? Will he allow Raphael Stone to either even engage in conversation with Daryl Morey?
That's a very good question, and I don't know the answer to that question, obviously. Based on the way things ended with Daryl Morey leaving somewhat abruptly, saying that he was kind of getting away from it, and then very quickly landing with the Sixers, that kind of tells you about what the relationship was like when he walked out the door, what he was walked out. So you make a very good point about will Stone be able to do any kind of a deal of substance with Daryl Morey? With that said, if the answer is yes, he could, would that kind of a deal interest you? Now you've got Embiid as your big, who can shoot from distance. With if he ever gets his legs back, a very lightning quick point guard. How does that sit with you relative to where you are today?
I mean, I'm okay with getting Joel. If that's the best deal that you can get is to get Joel Embiid, you could do a lot worse than Joel Embiid. I'm sure the fans of Houston would probably embrace him. He has a warm personality. He's great with the media. He's great with the public, and he's about the closest thing to Akeem Olajuwon in the NBA when he's healthy. So I'm sure that that would be a lot of love that way. That another big man in Houston, and if you can surround him with some outside shooters, like it appears Daryl Morey has done in Philly, I think that would be great. I think Daryl Morey is happy for now with the team that he's constructed in Philly. So I don't think that he would trade Embiid for Harden, and neither do I think the Rockets would trade Harden for Embiid. I just don't think a deal there could be done, because I don't think the two franchises are going to be willing to communicate and deal with each other. That's just my thoughts.
Well, I think beyond that, I think you're right on the player on the court analysis. I don't think either team would be initially to give up that player for that other player. I think you're right. Embiid has a team around him now that's got some more distant shooters that's going to let him operate in the post. The Rockets have some of that some of those pieces, right? With Gordon, with Daniel House. So they've got guys who can shoot from distance. But I think Philly has a little bit more, and I think Daryl Morey is going to enjoy playing with the big man, especially after his small ball experiment failed. So I think he's going to want to keep a hold of Embiid, at least for the short term.
Okay, now you and I have talked throughout the offseason about a potential James Harden to Brooklyn deal. I'm of the belief that if you can get Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, and Jared Allen, you make that deal. You thought that, well, I'll let you tell me what you thought, and you tell the audience what your thoughts are on that proposed deal.
I think Brooklyn would be feeling like they're giving up too much in order to do that deal. I think that would be a good deal for the Rockets. And I think going back to what I said maybe 5 minutes ago, step back a little bit, but you get a foundation, and then 2 years from now, you have a foundation built, and you're adding one more piece, either a free agent or a solid draft pick or a key free agent pickup, or a trade. I think that kind of a deal with Brooklyn gives you that capability, gives you that solid foundation. I just don't know that Brooklyn would feel like they're getting, this is going to sound weird, enough for as much as they're giving back. So let's think back to what we saw in the playoffs a couple of months ago with Brooklyn playing against Toronto, if I remember correctly, and how well they played. They were very competitive, even though they didn't have Durant. They didn't have Kyrie Irving. Didn't have
Lost you again. Lost you. In any event, this was my proposed deal for the Rockets in Brooklyn. It was Brooklyn getting Harden, who has 3 years left on his deal, and the Rockets getting Dinwiddie, LeVert, and Allen. Dinwiddie has 3 years. LeVert has 2 years. Jared Allen still on his rookie contract, has 1 year left. So this is the proposal that we were talking about before you froze up there. Maybe you can repeat what you were saying.
Yeah, I was simply saying that if I'm Houston, if I could get that deal, I'd be happy. If I'm Brooklyn, I feel like I'm giving up too much because I have 4 guys: Dinwiddie, Durant, Irving, and DeAndre Jordan. 4 guys out of my key 7, certainly, who didn't play. And yet, when you look at how they played against Toronto, they played very well. If you take that same team and add Durant and or Irving, in this case, adding both, I think you have a great team there. I don't know why Brooklyn then wants to give that up when they have a lot of flexibility with these players to get one player who, if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, now you're stuck. These 3 guys that you have, so from Brooklyn's perspective, I was saying I wouldn't do it if I were Brooklyn, because I think I have the right pieces that can give me everything I need to supplement the 2 superstars I got at a reduced contract rate versus going into one guy. If he gets hurt, if he falls off, I'm stuck, just like we started off with that big contract, and I can't necessarily be able to move it. I can move any of these guys at any point, but I couldn't move that really big contract. So that's from a Brooklyn perspective. I wouldn't want to do this deal as it is. If I'm Houston, I would love this deal. I've got a foundation. I've got guys who can play. Yeah, I mean, I would. This deal would be perfect if I'm a Rockets fan.
Gotcha.
I just don't think Brooklyn's going to do it.
Gotcha. All right, let's look at a couple more of the comments. Hendricks, another problem with the trade. We gave up CP3, 2 first rounders for Wall, and 1 first rounder. Not good. That's a very good point. So we've gone from Chris Paul to Russell Westbrook to John Wall. I
said that earlier.
That is a digression.
I said that about 10 minutes ago. I said that if you're recording this, you'll go back 10 minutes and you'll see that I mentioned that.
I may have missed it in translation.
If I dropped off, I apologize. But yeah, I definitely said this exact point that Drix is talking about, and so sometimes you have to take a step back in order to get around the barrier that's in front of you to get to where you want to be. So the question is, I go back to how we started this. What's the near long-term play for the Rockets? Thinking 2 years out, what is John Wall going to be able to bring to you that you wouldn't have had with Westbrook? That, to me, that's really what the question is. Because if you're not doing significantly better, all you did was do a lateral move and you basically got nothing this year. But look, I'm not going to say this because I don't believe this is going to be the case, but maybe the Rockets say, if I keep Westbrook, we're going to stay middle of the pack. We're going to stay a 4 or 5 seed, maybe a 6 seed. If we get really hot, maybe a 3 seed. But that's about as best we're going to be. If we go John Wall and if it doesn't work out, we won't be a seed. We'll be out of the playoffs. Problem with that is you've already given up, as a Rockets fan, a lot of your draft picks. So I don't see what the purpose of this trade was, which is again what we're talking about, but I guess we'll find out.
Fortunato question is, Harden really by himself as he stays? I think the what ifs are about Boogie and Wall, how they play. The other players we know their play unless they trade away Gordon and Tucker. The problem with Boogie and Wall is that they're both coming off of devastating injuries. Boogie had a torn Achilles, a blown ACL, I believe. So you're talking about two guys that, 5 years ago, this would be a great deal bringing in Boogie Cousins and John Wall. But now you're talking about guys that who knows if they can even play basketball? Who knows if they can go through a 72-game season, instead of an 82-game season? Boogie's contract is non-guaranteed. We don't even know if he's going to make the team. He's got to try to make the team. We also re-signed Gerald Green, I believe, yesterday to a non-guaranteed contract. That's another guy coming off of injuries. So it looks like the Rockets are stacking their roster with guys who may or may not can play. And I completely understand James Harden saying, hey, man, get me out of here. If you guys are going the rebuilding route, I'm not willing to be a part of that. We got a head coach that's never been a head coach before. We don't know how good he is, in communication, because we know in the NBA, it's more about communication with the guys than it really is the X's and O's. So I don't know about Boogie and John Wall. I like the names, but I got to see these guys on the court and see if they can play before I can get excited about it.
This harkens back, and Rockets fan will remember this. Tracy McGrady going to the Spurs late in his career. Now, he played. He wasn't hurt. But at the end of the day, he really couldn't play anymore. He was coming off some knick-knack injuries here and there. And at the end of the day, he didn't really play much. He wasn't nearly the force that people thought he might be for the Spurs in 13 when the Spurs lost to Miami. In fact, I don't remember him playing much in that series. He was on the bench, but I don't think he played much. I think Boogie and Walls are in that same situation. So to Fulton's question, is Harden by himself? Again, I won't say he's completely by himself, but he's going to eat all he can eat for the near future until those guys can prove that they can get on the court and stay on the court. Those guys have not been on the court the last year. So until that happens, no, I think Harden is by himself.
All right, well, other moves around the NBA today. LeBron James signed an extension with the Lakers that's going to carry him through the next couple of years. Your immediate thoughts to LeBron re-signing?
I think LeBron at 36 is probably saying, you know what, let me lock myself in. And he doesn't want to leave LA. He's going to stay in LA. His son will be graduating high school in a couple of years and can come to the NBA. And it may be a deal where, you know what, pay me now. And we'll try to figure out a way to sign, a top draft pick, a way to sign him. And I can play with my son and I can move on. But I brought you a chip. We may get you another chip this year. And then after that, hey, you figure it out with Ant and everybody else. I like the move for the Lakers, locking him up. They can now finish the rest of their free agent signings, particularly Ant, pay him whatever he needs to get paid, and move on. So I think it's good for both LeBron as well as for the Lakers.
Going back to the Rockets, where they are right now, and we can touch on your San Antonio Spurs a little bit as well while we have you on. The state of the Western Conference, do you see the Rockets as currently constructed a playoff team? As of now, they have the longest current streak in the NBA of playoff appearances, I think at 9, since the Spurs did not make the playoffs this past season, ending there to 2 decades, 21 years?
22.
Your thoughts on the Spurs and Rockets playoff chances? Should these teams aspire to make the playoffs 22 consecutive years? Or is Dallas the new king of Texas?
I think a healthy Porzingis makes Dallas the king, no doubt. That team is solid. Without Porzingis, they'll be dangerous, and we saw that in the playoffs when he got injured and didn't play the last couple of games against the Clippers. But I think without him long term, I just don't think Dallas can be the king, particularly because they also lost their other big man. I forget the guy's name, but the center, and I think he did an ACL late in the season as well. So I don't know who the king is going to be in Texas this year. That's a very interesting question because I think Spurs are trying to regroup and find themselves. The Rockets have names, but they don't have players on the court other than Harden. I think Dallas has the biggest name outside of Harden in Texas, and he has pieces around him that can be competitive. So I guess as I think through it, yeah, I think Dallas will be, even without a healthy Porzingis to start. But I wouldn't put any money on that. As far as aspiring to make the playoffs, I think for the Spurs, they need to really figure out, do they have a core group of players who are ready to emerge? Or do they need to take one more step back, get another decent high draft pick, and then try to rebuild? The Rockets, without having a healthy Boogie and a John Wall, I just don't know how long you're going to be able to ride that Harden horse. What's interesting about this, he'll be able to eat as much as he wants and then some. On the other side of that, he may feel like that's too much. That's a very, if you really think about that, that's a very interesting conundrum. A guy who likes to be the highlight, and yet because of the team's makeup, he's too much of the highlight, and he doesn't need all that I won't say pressure, but he's going to realize he's going to get worn down pretty quickly having to take all the shots. So I don't know. Look, Christian Woods?
Wood.
He came, he was in a contract year, so he played well. I do think the guy has some talent. He's moved around, but I do think that guy has some talent and will bring. I can't think of my guy's name in Atlanta who plays the 4, but I think he brings type of
John Collins.
He brings a John Collins type of game, and if he can give you that kind of production, I think that's going to be a very nice signing by the Rockets. However, if he was just playing for a contract and gets lazy, well, there's more money wasted.
Nelson said LeBron is trying to catch Jordan's rings. He may, which skewers the GOAT conversation, which Bron is not. Shots fired.
Ooh. That is. I'll let you go first on this one.
Man, they're definitely 1-2, Jordan and LeBron. I don't know how you pass Jordan ever. I don't know if anyone passes Jordan ever. I think it is important to note that there was 7 seasons where Jordan didn't win a championship. And then he took off 2 years, a year and a half to play baseball. LeBron's never taken off. So if LeBron took off a season to rejuvenate, how good could he be? Now he's probably going to play till he's 39, 40 years old. I think his new contract, I think he wants to play with his son or play against his son. And I think somehow, some way that will come to fruition where Bronny James will be a rookie in probably LeBron's last year in the NBA, and we'll get to see father and son either play together or play against each other. The GOAT conversation, I don't know. I just call them 1A and 1B. I'm good with either one.
LeBron is going to have more points, more rebounds, more assists. His averages for rebounds and assists are going to be higher. His average for scoring. His peak has been at a much longer clip than Jordan's. Think about it. In year 17, he averaged 25, 7, and 10, 25, 8, and 10, or 11. I mean, those are Hall of Fame type numbers in his 17th year. And he's been doing that for year after year after year after year. So when you look at just the raw numbers, he's going to easily surpass Jordan in every statistical category. The one area though that he will not be able to eclipse Jordan is once he got to a final, he never lost. Doesn't matter that in 14 when the heat Wade was starting to break down and Bosh was kind of, I guess, going into a funk. Doesn't matter that in 11. Well, I think in 11, LeBron kind of messed his own self up against Dallas. Doesn't matter that in 07, when the Spurs swept Cleveland, he was only, 4 or 5 years in the league, but his best player was an over-the-hill Ilgauskas. So part of it is that he never really played with. And let's just go one more. Cleveland, when Kevin Love got his arm broken or dislocated playing against Boston in the first round, and then Kyrie Irving tore his hamstring or whatever not long after that. So LeBron has made the finals. He's brought teams to the finals, but then when he gets into a serious firefight, he didn't have enough bullets. I don't know how you hold that against him, although many people do. But at the end of the day, people will say Jordan made the finals, and when he did, he won. LeBron could not always say that. So I think that's where people will look at him as goatish. But I think in the totality, we've never seen anybody put up the numbers consecutive years as LeBron James has done. We've never seen it. You can point somebody, out. We've just never seen someone put up these kind of numbers year after year after year for 15 straight years in the modern era. We've not seen that.
Right. Got you. All right, my man. Well, hey, thanks for popping on tonight to join me. I'm about to dive into some NFL conversation. I don't know if you want to stick around for that. You're more than welcome. If not, I will let you go, and I will delve into that as well. We're going to talk some AFC South football, the Titans, the Colts, what's going on with the Texans and their suspensions this week. You want to dive into that, or you want to bounce out?
I'll bounce on it because I need to get to something else. But let me say one thing before I bounce. Texas Longhorns basketball team, men's, beats UNC today. Should be a top 12, if not top 10 team next week. And the women's basketball team is doing well as they're doing very well as well. So hook 'em horns for all those Longhorns out there.
All right, my man. Well, hey, that's Nelson Armstrong. That's my boy. We're in Fan Hoops, Fantasy Basketball League. Been doing it for a long time. He knows his NBA stuff almost as well as I do. Pretty well tonight.
It shows you get the last shot. I see what you did.
So that'll close it out for this segment. Stay tuned. We're about to transition into some NFL talk. The Rockets trade John Wall tonight. Straight for John Wall tonight. They trade Russell Westbrook for John Wall and a future first-round pick. So, Nelson, my man, thanks for joining us. Now let's go ahead and transition. And, oh, by the way, before you guys leave, if you bounce out on this basketball segment, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button. Thank you guys for your comments. I appreciate that. And my boy Kyle, he's in the house. He says, what's up? What's up, Kyle? We're going to get into some football talk here in just a moment. But again, my man Nelson, thanks for bouncing in. And we'll talk to you in a couple of days as we get ready for this NBA season.
See you. Thanks a lot, man.
All right. Thanks a lot. All right, guys, we're back here. So the breaking news tonight from the NBA, the Rockets trade Russell Westbrook for John Wall. But now we are about to dive head on into some Tennessee Titans football. And as we change the banner from Rockets colors to Tennessee Titans colors, we will get into some NFL talk. So before you guys go, Drex, you may be interested in this before you bounce out. We're going to take a look at what's going on first with the Houston Texans because they take on the Colts this week, and the Texans got a lot of things going on over there. They were looking pretty good. Deshaun Watson has been balling out lately, but unfortunately, a couple of issues have happened with the Texans, and we're going to bring that up here in just a second. As their leading receiver, Will Fuller, has been suspended. He, along with Bradley Roby, both have been suspended for the remainder of the season. So now, what does that mean for the AFC South? Well, if you're a Tennessee Titan fan, this is actually not very good news because you were hoping that the Texans would be at full strength because they play the Colts 2 of the next 3 weeks. And you would think that a fully healthy Houston Texans squad could possibly beat the Colts at least one of those games. The Titans have a 1-game lead over the Colts at this point. Another division loss for Indy would pretty much wrap up the AFC South for the Titans as long as they don't lose any other divisional games. They have the Jaguars left. They have the Texans at the end of the season. But Will Fuller, the starting wide receiver, being suspended along with Roby, that's could be a problem for the Texans trying to upset the Colts this week, and then they play the Colts again in 2 more weeks. So that's going to be a problem for the Houston Texans going forward. Now, as you look at some other things going on around the division, the Jaguars, they fired their general manager this week. And then, of course, the Titans have their 2-game winning streak going as they knocked off the Colts this past week. And then they also knocked off the Baltimore Ravens 2 weeks ago. And by the way, the Baltimore Ravens in their Wednesday afternoon game today, they almost pulled it out. They had a pretty good game against the Indianapolis Colts. Against the Pittsburgh Steelers. They almost pulled that game out today, but they fall short today. Kyle had a question. What do you think about the plan would be if Tannehill got COVID? I hope not, but just thinking about it after the Ravens game, it would be a huge problem for the Titans if Tannehill got injured or he came down with COVID. Because we only have 1 backup quarterback right now. And then I think we just signed the former backup Deshaun Kaiser, from the Green Bay Packers. He's on our practice squad guy. So we're very limited at the backup quarterback position. That was one thing that I was very concerned about in the offseason. Obviously, Mariota left, went to the Oakland Raiders. That left us without any experience at the backup quarterback position. We signed Trevor Siemian. We had him on the practice squad the entire season, but for whatever reason, we left him unprotected. You can protect, I believe, up to 5 guys on your practice squad. We left Trevor Siemian unprotected. So now all we have at quarterback is Logan Woodside, who threw the 1 pass on the fake punt a couple of weeks ago against the Colts. And that's his only NFL pass. And then you got Deshaun Kaiser, who has NFL experience, but he's never won an NFL game. So that's going to be a problem if we lose Tannehill at all. That's going to be a major, major problem for us. Another major problem for us is going to be this guy right here, Myles Garrett. He is back this week for the Cleveland Browns. Myles Garrett missed a couple of games. He came down with COVID, so he's missed the Browns' last 2 ball games. But he is one of the best defensive ends in the NFL, and he's going to give Quisenberry all that he can handle. Quisenberry had a great game on the left side of the offensive line last week, but he's going to get all he can handle with Myles Garrett being back in the lineup for the Cleveland Browns this week. So 2 8-3 ball clubs. Personally, I think Cleveland is overrated. Their 8-3 schedule, in my opinion, is a result of their schedule. They've had one of the easiest schedules in the NFL to date. They played Jacksonville, they played Houston, they played everyone in the NFC East, and their 2 games against the Bengals. The only good team that the Browns have beaten this season is the Indianapolis Colts, and we thank them for that. But every other game that they've won has been against the team with a under 500 record. So I do not expect the Titans to lose this game. We go into this game as 5.5-point favorites. I expect the Titans, if they come out with the same type of intensity, the same type of focus that they have had the past 2 weeks, there is no reason that they should lose to the Cleveland Browns this weekend. So I fully expect the Titans to come out on top this weekend against the Indianapolis Colts. So we look to have a full pre-game show for the Titans coming up this weekend on Saturday. I do hope to have a special guest appearance by one of the best all-around players in NFL history, a former Texas Longhorn, also a former Cleveland Brown. We hope to have his appearance this Saturday. If he has time, I talked to him today, and he said that he would be happy to join the show this Saturday. And I am speaking of the one and only Eric Metcalf. Metcalf was a teammate of mine with the Texas Longhorns long time ago, 1985 through 1989. He was an outstanding kick returner and running back for the Texas Longhorns. Had a tremendous career with the Cleveland Browns. So we hope to have him on the show this upcoming Saturday night to preview the Cleveland Browns. He spent some time in that organization after he's retired, so he knows that team. We'll talk about the 2 outstanding running backs going head-to-head in this game, Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb. And then we'll also talk a little bit about the state of the Texas Longhorns as well. So we hope that you will join us on Saturday for that. I will update you on Twitter and on my YouTube channel if that is going to happen, and if so, at what time. So I thank you guys for joining us tonight. We were all over the place. We had breaking news here in Houston with the Houston Rockets, with Russell Westbrook getting traded. Breaking news here in Houston yesterday with Will Fuller among 2 players that got suspended. And then, of course, Myles Garrett being activated for the Cleveland Browns this week to take on the Titans. So a lot going on, a lot to talk about. So I thank you guys for joining me here tonight. Leave your comments, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on your way out. And then we'll see you guys this coming Saturday night for a full-blown Titans-Browns preview. Thanks for joining me tonight. Tighten up. Oh, before we go, Kyle had one more question. I think Kyle had one more question. We're going to get that in before we go. If Corey Davis leaves, would you like to bring in Will Fuller to put on the other side? I would not want Will Fuller unless it's at a bargain basement price. Here's why. He's a very injury-prone player. I think the reason why he lasted the full season this year was because of the PEDs that he was taking. And I think he took those. This is just my opinion. I have no facts. I'm not a doctor. But a guy that has an injury history going into a contract year, what's the best way for him to get a big contract? Put up big numbers and don't get hurt. So I think teams are going to take a step back now and say, hey, this guy put up big numbers, but why? Was it because he was using illegal substances? And I think that's going to decrease his market value. So if I'm the Tennessee Titans, no, I don't want any parts of Will Fuller unless it's at a bargain basement rate, because he's not a guy that you can depend on long term, in my opinion. I would rather invest $13, $14 million in Corey Davis and re-sign him to come back with Tennessee. But we'll discuss that more on Saturday night. All right, guys, let me get out of here. Thank you for joining us tonight. And once again, we'll see you on Saturday. Good night.